Hey guys, welcome to My So Bliss. Today I'm going to show you how to insert an invisible zipper. Now there's lots of different kinds of zippers, but today I'm going to show you the invisible one. And that means it's completely invisible when you see it in a garment or a bag or something. The only thing you're really supposed to see is the little tab. So this little tab right here. So this is my invisible zipper. It's a little different than other ones you might see at the store. This one is an all-purpose zipper. So if you're looking at the zippers at Joann's, you might see this one. You might see an invisible zipper. I know they have separating zippers or sports zippers. So just make sure you're getting the right one for your project. Also, make sure you're looking at the length of the zipper that you're going to need. They range from about 7 to 6 inches up to 24 inches. And then you can also buy zippers online that can be as big or as small as you want. You can do whatever you want with it. So that's really nice. And there's all different kinds of colors and just styles out there. So zippers can be really fun for all your projects. So I'm excited to show you guys how to insert the perfect invisible zipper. Now for our first step, we're going to take our zipper over to our ironing board. This is a step that I feel like gets overlooked quite often. I know I used to not think it was a big deal to do it, but it is a huge deal and makes a huge difference on how well your zipper looks once it is inserted. So let's go over to the ironing board and I'll show you guys why. Now when you're at your ironing board, you're going to open up your zipper and turn it to the wrong side. So we're going to work with one side first and then we'll go to the other side. So first with your fingers, you can see how you can just push your coils back. Now, if you look at it really closely, you can see that if you push your coils back, you can see 2 rows of stitching right along here, right underneath where your coils are. Now, we want to iron it so that we can see that stitching. Now, the hard part about ironing a zipper is that you don't want to melt these coils, because if you melt them, your zipper won't work. So you actually don't want to iron on top of them at all. You just want to push those coils off to the side. So let me show you how I do that. I take my iron and I'm obviously going to try and push it with my finger as much as I can, but I don't want to get too close to my iron or it's going to burn me. I know there's tools out there that probably help with this. I actually don't have any, so I'm just using my fingers for now. And my iron is just going along and pushing as well. So here you can kind of see how it's pushed way more down here than it is back towards the end of it, because I haven't really touched this side yet. So you can see how it's totally opening up down here. Maybe if I bring it a little closer, see how it does that? So I'm going to make sure to do that along both sides of my zipper. Once you have your zipper all ironed on both sides, I'm taking it over with my 2 pieces. And I'm going to take my zipper and with it open, I'm going to lay it right sides down. So right sides together on top of my fabric. And I'm going to take this one on the left. You want to line it up with your 5/8 inch seam allowance. And typically when you're putting in a zipper, that is the seam allowance you will be using. So no matter if you're doing a seam above or below, it's going to line up with the zipper nicely. So actually take your seam gauge and measure in 5/8 of an inch. You could also eyeball it, and that's where you want your coils to rest. Now, from the top, you want this top of the tab to come down just a little bit, because you want the top of your zipper, which is right here, mine's a clear plastic, I want that to be at 3/4 of an inch. So I'll line that up and kind of check that a little bit. I'm going to come down just a little too much, right there. Okay, so I'm going to come down so that this tab right here is at 3/4 of an inch and that my zipper coils are in this way 5/8 of an inch. And then I can start pinning that down. Now that I have it pinned in place, I'm ready to take this over to my sewing machine and to stitch it down. Now, when you are sewing on a zipper, you want to make sure that you are using a zipper foot. This just makes it possible so that when especially you are sewing a invisible zipper, you can get really close to the coils. So I'm using my zipper foot. I'm going to start at the top. So I'll put my foot down and make sure your needle is all the way over because if you hit the center, you'll break your needle. I've done that a time or two. And I'm just gonna take a few stitches and then I'm gonna back stitch. And then I can start stitching again. And while I am stitching, I am also using my presser foot to push those coils open, just like we did when we ironed them, and getting as close as possible, because I want to get right on that fold that the coils have created. So if you need to go slow and push your coils over, that is just fine. Take your time with this so that it looks really nice. Now, when you get down here to where the zipper tab is, but there's a point where it's just gonna hit your zipper foot and not let you keep stitching as close. So we're actually gonna get close and back stitch and stitch a little more, and then just put our presser foot up and take it off, and we'll come back and finish that in a minute. After you've sewn that first side down, this is a good time to check and make sure your zipper is going in correctly, and make sure that you are doing it close enough that it is going to be an invisible zipper. You can see exactly where I stopped down here, but you can see up here that it's going to actually look really nice, and so far so good. So I can unzip that, and now we're ready to put in the other side. The first thing that we need to do is put the right side of the zipper to the right side of our other piece of fabric. So I'm going to take my zipper, right now it's upside down, so my bottom finger is holding the right side. And if I just flip my fabric over, my zipper is still right sides down. I'm still holding it right along the right side. And I can just line that up with the edge or with that 5/8 inch seam allowance that we talked about before. And I'm going to line the coils up right along that edge. Make sure it comes down 3/4 of an inch. And pin that in place. And while I'm doing that, make sure you lay your zipper out as straight as possible, and make sure that your top piece is going to line up correctly, especially if you're doing a skirt and your top edges need to line up nicely. You want to make sure that you're doing the same amount as you did on one side to the other side. So it's looking pretty good. So now I can just go along and pin it down. And then once it's pinned, I'm ready to take it over to my sewing machine and stitch it down just like I did this side. Now that we're doing the other side of our zipper, I switched my needle over to the left side, and I'm ready to stitch it down just like we did the other side. So I'm going to pull the coils over and start stitching. And once I go a few stitches, I'm going to back stitch just a couple stitches and then keep going down. And I'm going to make sure that my presser foot is pushing those coils over, and I'm getting as close as possible. Now, while I'm over at my sewing machine, I want to show you how to finish off this awkward part right here. So we're actually going to close the zipper, and see how nicely that lays. You can't even tell the zipper's in there, so that means that we did it right. So now we're gotta finish off this bottom so that you can't tell it's in there all the way down. So I'm actually going to flip one side of my fabric over. Here is the seam that I was creating and where I was stitching. And I'm actually going to turn that over so that I can see where my coils are, so I can get as close as possible to them. And I'm going to start from the bottom so that I can show you guys really well how to get close. And again, we're just gonna push as close to the coils as we can. This is a little more difficult because the coils are closed. It's gonna take a little more prying, but it is possible to get close if you just kind of maneuver it a little more. So I'm gonna stitch a few and then actually back stitch a few so that it holds it in place really nice. And then keep going, and make sure that your other side of your fabric is not under here and doesn't get caught in those stitches. And I'm just gonna go up to where I ended my stitching, and then back stitch, and then cut my threads. And then once that side's done, I can then come over to the other side and find where I left off and do the same thing. And then once you are done stitching the bottom sides of the zipper, you can then take it over to your iron and give the sides a good pressing, and make sure to press down here, especially if you couldn't get as close as you wanted. If you give it a good pressing, it will actually lay really good and conceal it really nicely. I couldn't get as close as I wanted to, but you can't even tell. And usually this will keep going down and go into another seam, that 5/8 inch seam. Typically this is seen on a skirt, so you wouldn't even be able to tell that a zipper was there. So I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe. And if you want to see any more tips or tricks, make sure to check out my Instagram at mysobliss, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!